The UK's commitment to spend 0.7% of its gross domestic product on overseas aid is a promise enshrined in British law. And it has helped fund vaccination programmes, education initiatives, poverty relief and refugee support all around the world. The amount spent on aid is barely 1/10 of what is spent each year on the UK Health Service. Announcing a reduction to 0.5% of GDP, the Chancellor acknowledged it was a difficult decision.
I have listened with great respect to those who have argued passionately to retain this target. But at a time of unprecedented crisis, government must make tough choices.
The scope and the political independence of the UK's overseas development work has been fundamentally changed since Boris Johnson decided to merge the Foreign Office and International Development back in September, a move that some critics described as a hostile takeover of the overseas aid budget. Now cutting some $4 billion from that aid budget has been criticised as a moral failure.
We got rich of a long and complex history of relations with the global south, a long history of colonisation, of extraction, of fossil fuels, of exploitation. We have a moral duty to the world to redistribute a small proportion of our wealth.
But earlier this year, Boris Johnson complained that British aid was being seen as a giant cash machine in the sky, and he demanded value for money. And despite the aid cuts, the Prime Minister insists Britain is still a strong donor nation.
On any view, where this country is one of the biggest investors or donors overseas in all its forms. I think we're the second biggest in the G7 on any view, in whether in percentage terms or in cash terms, and that will continue.
In a year in which the World Bank estimates that COVID-19 will push around 100 million people into extreme poverty, the UK's position is under question.
We've prided ourselves over the last decade or two on being a development superpower, if you like, and this seems to cut across that without there being much of a clear strategic or humanitarian basis for that.
It's bad news for the UK's global standing. Next year, the UK is hosting the G7, it's hosting the UN's Climate Change Summit. It's going to be very difficult for the UK to ask other countries to do more when the UK is cutting back its own aid budget.
There is wide recognition that UK overseas aid could be made more streamlined, better targeted and more effective. And $13 billion is still a significant budget to work with. But scaling back Britain's support for the world's poor and needy is a controversial decision at a sensitive time. Paul Brennan, Al Jazeera, Whitehall.